Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and I've got a star guest here, number two at the Arnold Strongman Classic, Lucas Hatton. Welcome, mate. How are you?
Doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
How you feeling? Are you still kind of overwhelmed by your performance at the Arnolds, or is it kind of business as expected, or how you feeling?
I mean, it's what we thought we could do. It was what I thought would happen if we didn't leave any points on the board. We even thought there might have been a chance to win, but I thought I might get a little more help on a few events. But meeting Hooper's hard. So no, we had a great prep, great show. Big team came out to help out. Just I couldn't be more thankful for the people who helped out with the show. It's people who don't think strongman's a team sport are wrong. So we had a small army of people there helping out with everything from timing warm-ups to just grabbing what I needed and helping Alec, and it was just a good time, man.
Mhm. We'll get into all of that, but what I'm going to do is just fire off a quick round of questions that people sent me that they want you to answer. We'll try and
Sure.
just kind of race through those, and then we'll get to the tournament. So, start off, I'm not running a dating agency here, but people are asking about height, weight, and age. People are always interested in those things.
I am 6 foot, and I'm a genuine 6 foot. You can get the measuring tape out. I know most 6 foot guys are like 10 and a half. But no, 6 foot on the dot. For the Arnold, I was 365. And if you ask me that question in about 10 weeks at Worlds, I hope that number is less. And
Yeah.
I'm 29. I'll be 30 in a couple months at the end of April.
Okay. Another popular question. How much do you think you can improve your max deadlift? And is that a priority for you?
Yeah, that's a huge priority. And honestly, we're the percent increase we're doing, from mesocycle to mesocycle in training, is quite a bit. Like we're on a good rate of improvement. Um, at Shaw, I probably went for too big of a weight. The max that day was probably 910 to 915,
Mhm.
and 6 or 7 months later at the Arnold, pulled a very easy 926. I think if I got a little more rest before my third, I might have gotten even a little bit more. Um, I mean, in the range of 900 plus pounds, increasing by 20 or 30 pounds in half a year is kind of a big deal. Let's say I can do that two or three more times, I'm right in the mix.
Yeah.
Um, do I think it'll only take a year? No, I think deadlift's one of those things that builds slowly. But I think you give me 18 months, I'm right in that top pack. I'm probably never going to be the overall leader of a max deadlift, but I think getting to 960, 970 is a totally something in the realm of possibility.
Did you notice a difference with the elephant bar? The guys tell me that if you've got a smooth pull, it's normally fine, but if you're a kind of rip and grip guy, it can give you problems with the oscillation. Did you find anything in it?
So a fairly smooth puller, so I don't ever feel whip bar. I didn't feel any kind of like oscillation once it broke the floor, but I did notice, and I have to double check. I think my 941, whatever that weight jump is, added a 45.
Hmm.
So my bar got longer. That was the only one where I felt like I was pulling the slack out and it just wouldn't break the floor.
Yeah.
Or the point where it wanted to break the floor was kind of my no man's land, a not powerful position.
Mhm.
And I think the 926 to 941 was a difference of a switch out of plate. Um, but I felt like the point where it wanted to break the ground, it just wasn't a powerful spot. So I don't know, gonna hit the drawing board. I'm gonna see that again. Um, I just got to get more power off the floor and maybe in that you know 2 or 3 inches above the normal off the floor position.
Mhm.
But yeah, once it breaks the floor, it felt great.
The big jerk, the overhead, everyone asking, what could you have lifted? What were you ready to lift if you had needed to?
I am 100% certain I could do 260 kilos. About 50% certain I could do 270. The number that I had in my head was 272, just because no one has ever pressed 600 pounds in competition before,
Mhm.
whether it's weightlifting or strongman or whatever. To be fair, it's just because no one's had an opportunity. There's totally guys who have done that in the gym. Um, strongman loves to forget that weightlifting exists. um, And then, even guys outside of weightlifting have done it. Like Joe Kovacs has done 275 kilo in the gym. But I wanted to be the first person to hold silver overhead in a competition. And I 50% sure I could do that. And maybe there'll be another show sometime soon where I get a chance to do that.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Question you said about, for worlds, a lighter body weight's going to suit you because it's obviously overall kind of less heavy, a bit more mobile. But overall, do you feel like going into next year's Arnold, you want to put on more weight than you had this year and strongest man on earth?
No, so really what that comes down to, I don't think it's so much correlated with the top end strength. Because I've been lighter and had fairly good top end strength. I'm very good at putting on weight. It's a blessing and a curse. Some guys have to really fight to do that. I don't. But what that decision comes down to is how I feel day to day, how I
Mhm.
sleep. Um, it's things just get harder as you get bigger. And I noticed that just and other things like blood work and blood pressure and all those things, just I want to be in this game for a long time. I have ambitions beyond strongman. Sure, if I just wanted to be the best strongman I could possibly be for like 4 years, I'd probably be 375 and just, be near death after every event,
The Eddie
breathing
Hall.
hard in the back. Yeah, like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I'd rather, maybe start my preps in the 340s and for big shows like the Arnold or Strongest Man on Earth, maybe
Mhm.
end close to 360. Maybe I'm still fairly big, but something like the Arnold Classic, or not the Arnold Classic, World Strongest Man or Rogue, where I might be asked to do more medleys,
Mhm.
maybe that prep ends at 350, 355.
Yeah.
And over the years, I just want to make that 355 denser and denser and denser. Um, I've got just excess body fat that doesn't serve me. And over time, it's my job to get rid of it.
Mhm. Yeah. You seem like a man that could potentially be one to break multiple overhead world records. Which of those is your priority or one you just has a particular kind of affinity for that you would like to break? Is there one or is it all of them?
I genuinely feel like I'm the only person in the sport right now that could hold all three. Um, Bibby has held two, but he can't dumbbell. Um, you know, Hooper holds one. Could he improve his dumbbell to that point? Probably not. Um, so it's like for me, the end goal would be to hold all three because I don't know if anyone has held all three at one point. Z maybe. I don't
Possibly.
know.
Yeah, I don't know at the
Possibly.
same time. Yeah, but
Yeah, that's it. That idea excites me a lot. But on the flip side of that coin, I won't seek out those records. I will do them if I need to do them in a contest. People are like, why don't you go to log lift championships? Like, I bet I'll be invited, but if I'd rather go to, let's say, strongest man on earth if it has a max log. And the unfortunate thing about that is more than likely the wise decision is to do enough to win the event and not shoot for
yeah,
231 kilo.
exactly.
I want those records, but I'm also very selective when I compete. So, if I end my career and I don't do that, it's not going to kill me, but I'd love to do it.
It's interesting because in a time now where everyone's chasing records, you're kind of going the opposite way on that of
Hmm.
seeing longevity in the sport and overall
Hmm.
things, yeah, which is kind of nice, I think, for people. Um, Another popular question: what training methods do you utilize that you think many athletes don't? Perhaps you talked about like weightlifting and things. How do you see that?
I don't know if there's any magic to the actual weightlifting movements. I think weightlifting movements like the snatch or the clean are great if an athlete is proficient in them. If you're going to spend, you know, 8 weeks just figuring out the technique, maybe a waste of time. But if you're a weightlifting coach, that's a really easy ask. If your coach and you have no experience in the snatch, maybe some really explosive sandbag extensions or the movement me and Alec use, the strongman power clean, where we do the zercher at the bands. Like there's tons of great triple extension type exercises you can use. I just use some weightlifting movements because they're good for me. Um, but as far as like systemically, the main thing that I think most strongman athletes would benefit from is people ask me things like, "What's your best, dumbbell press?" Or as far as like seated dumbbell press or
Mhm.
barbell press or bench press or strict press, and it's like And when I do well in a pressing event, they're like, he has the strongest shoulders. I was like, I guarantee you, I do not. I don't push those movements super heavy. I'm not weak in those movements, but if you design your training around the fact that if 90% of your power on overhead comes from your lower body moving very quickly and very explosively in very specific positions, right? Um, and most guys they'll miss a lift because they have not enough lockout power, and they'll deduce from that I need more lockout power to be an elite overhead presser. And I was like, no, you need your squat to be 50 pounds heavier and 0.2 meters per second fat. I don't know, whatever metric you want to do. And it's a much easier route to having elite overhead. I don't need lockout power because my legs get it locked out. Um, I know I'll eat my words when it comes to a heavy Viking press on the rep 18, but no, our whole system is designed around the lower body being the driver of force.
Which is exactly correlates with the last video I did with Koklayev, who was talking about exactly the same thing. Everyone thinks it's just the shoulders and all the power is generating from the legs. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly that principle. And also, what's interesting about you, I always hear you say, if I'm going to do well in this competition, it's because I'm going to get a PR in this event, that event, and that event, which means that you're always building up to a peak where your biggest lifts are always going to be at the tournament. Whereas we
Mm-hmm.
see a lot of guys leave their best in the gym, which is clearly another factor that
Mm-hmm.
works for you.
Yeah, it's like the amount of the top guys that know their max on everything concerns me. Like it's funny. I was actually just being out at Brian's place, and he's like, "What's your best squat?" I'm like, "I have no idea. I don't. I'll know when I need to know. When the contest has a max squat, I'll tell you what my squat is." Same thing. There's just certain lifts. It's so systemically fatiguing to do so that it's like save it for the contest. And if
Mm.
it's not in the contest, you have to understand it's just an accessory. I don't need to know my max in an accessory. So
Yeah.
for now, something like a squat is an accessory. So.
That's interesting. I'm sure it's kind of an ego thing, confidence thing that people want to see what they can do in the gym, but people like yourself prove that it doesn't pay off to be doing that. You've got to leave
Mm-mm.
that to the contest. It is interesting. And what about recovery? Are you someone that believes in ice baths and things like that, or are you someone that believes in food and rest?
I'm more in the food and rest column. I To be fair, I think anything that puts the body in a parasympathetic state just to relax and rest, that's a good enough reason to do something. And for some people, that might be massage or ice bath or hot cold or whatever. I've tried a lot of those things, and there's a time and place where I just like, I think that sounds nice right now.
Mhm.
But I don't think doing it every day is the make or break reason. Because you know who doesn't do that stuff? I
Cool.
don't. Mitch doesn't do that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Thor does some of it, but it sounds like he just times his meals out and tracks his sleep religiously. Um, like there's the argument to be made: does it add a percent here, percent there? Maybe, but I just I think just understanding how to structure your day around training and structure the rest of your day to prepare for the next training is the greatest skill you could probably have. A lot of those things are um, they make you feel nice, but they're not fixing the overall problem.
Yeah. Right. Getting on to ASC. You did Strongest Man on Earth. You came third. For me, it was kind of a no-brainer that you were going to do something very good at ASC. But for a lot of people, it was still the familiar names there,
Mm-hmm.
still were perhaps writing you off or not giving you such a chance. I know you were confident we had spoken beforehand and you executed kind of the plan that you went for. Um, was there anything about the tournament your first time there that kind of really surprised you? Was everything as you expected it to be? Because every tournament has its own kind of nuances, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. I'm really thankful. I actually went to the show last year.
Yeah.
I train out of the same gym as Aaron Murray and Angelica Jardine. Um, and my coach Alec, he coaches Inez and he coaches Gabby Dixon. So last year I was doing the Arnold UK. I
Mhm.
came out to be kind of Alec's assistant coach. So I was listed as I think formally I was listed as like Aaron's coach. So I got a coach's pass for the back. I had no reason to be there. I was coaching in the amateur show for Alec. But what was good about that is I got to go to the rules meeting. I got to go to familiarization. I got to be in the back for part of the show, and I got to see kind of the quirks of the show. So how does the rules meeting function? Who's in charge? Who's running the, judging? What kind of questions do they get in the rules, and how do they respond? So it's like I got to see all these people, and also being in the back as someone who had never competed against some of the best in the world at that point, I got to see that they're all human. It was just like the back room of any other show. I think it's easy to put these guys on a pedestal. Um, so 2 weeks later, when I did the Arnold UK, I knew that these were just humans. They were people who hurt, who mess up events, who panic in the back. Like, so it gave me a good confidence for that Arnold UK run, and it gave me a great snapshot of what this year would be. So it was just another layer of adding confidence to a great prep, great set of events for me. And like they kept calling me like the rookie, which factually is true for the Arnold Classic. I was new to the Arnold Classic, but everybody on that roster except for Hooper and Thor I'd beaten already. So like there wasn't a lot of fear as far as the roster.
Yeah.
In the show I'd already seen it, so just like let's do it. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think that's what people aren't familiar with. You've already achieved so much, but it happened in such a short period of time that people still kind of get used to who you are
Yeah.
in the sport. And I think now you've kind of established that with the Arnolds as well. But I think it's just you're in such little time, yeah, doing so much. Um, were you surprised not to see the Wheel of Pain in there? I expected it as Rogue. Now I've gone to Scotland, and of course that's a big old bit of kit to take on a plane. I thought it's bound to be there. And how do you think you would have got on in the Wheel of Pain had it been there?
What's funny is just based on the previous years, we thought the Wheel of Pain was going to be in. So that was why I had my little quest of sets of 20 on squats. We
Yeah.
wanted to build the most ridiculous work capacity of the legs of anyone ever. That was our goal. Um, and it still panned out. We had a heavy drag, we had heavy overhead. So building a wide base in the legs was not a bad idea. It honestly never is. But yeah, we were sure that we would have the Wheel of Pain. And honestly, if we have the Wheel of Pain in the future, we'll probably run that same block.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, hitting high volume in the squats and the leg press and all that kind of stuff is a great off-season thing to do. So I think every off-season we'll probably hit something similar until it stops working, and we'll be ready when the Wheel of Pain comes. I think that could be an event I think I can win, but you never know till you're on the piece of equipment.
Absolutely.
They always predict the tall guy. I can put more force into the floor than any of those guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just some people, like Mateus and that just seem to be always going to do well, hard to
Yeah,
beat in that type of event. But
yeah,
it'd be
yeah.
interesting.
I say what I say, but if I was to sit down and do predictions until I've done the Wheel of Pain, I would say those guys will beat me, or they're likely to.
Mhm.
Once I've done it, I'll have a lot better idea.
So you still fancy a go at it anyway. It wouldn't be an
I
event
think, yeah.
thing.
No, I loved it. I'd love to see it.
Mm. So we had the deadlift, fairly kind of predictable. We all know what deadlift is. Thor didn't hit the 501, but he still won the comp. So everything kind of, I guess, as pretty much as expected. Then we went on to the overhead, which was the dumbbell into the natural stone into the log. I've got to say, I think one thing that makes you popular with fans is that the way that you train, the way that you perform exercises, your lockouts always look immaculate
Mm.
because of technique, also obviously because of the strength, but they always look immaculate. So it's very like your stone was undoubtedly the cleanest of them all by the rules. Your lockouts on the log and dumbbell without question. Because you're so clean on your lockouts, does it frustrate you some of the decisions that the guys are getting versus what the rules are when you know yourself like
I I think in hindsight, not really. Not that I have any frustration with the guys. I wish a lot of the rules and standards would be tighter. I don't like the narrative that stone press is just hard, so the lockout standard should be loose, or it makes it unsafe to have firm lockout standards. I don't think that to be true at all. You could drop a barbell on yourself. You could drop any of those things on yourself. Is it more risky than a barbell? Yes. Um, but the guys who actually, work on proper mobility, strength, more than once a year, like Trey can do a beautiful lockout position, and he's one of the most biggest muscle bound guys out there. Tom has a beautiful lockout position. Um, my point is it's not impossible if you design your training in a way that we know our end goal is to have a great lockout position, whether that's with the strength to do so or the mobility to do so. Design your entire training program around that, and
Mhm.
then things like your lockout will get better. So I wish the standards across the sport were just tighter and as hard as possible. But given how the rules were written, it's not the athlete's fault that they got a down command.
It's never the
Um,
athlete's fault. You can only go on what the referee gives you there, you know?
yeah, it's to me, I'd love it if it was harder. Anything that makes it just technically harder will
Yeah,
benefit the best athletes.
yeah.
And you know what? I think if you made it harder, a guy like Hooper would fucking, I'm sorry, cussing on your channel,
That's okay.
would find a way. I don't know if you do that on your channel. He would find a way to do it because, he's that guy. And like,
Mhm.
if the standards changed overnight, he likes winning, so he'll find a way to do it. Um, I don't know. For me, anything where we can make it harder or the standards higher, let's do it.
Yeah. I
Like
think,
people complained about the crash pad rule. I
yeah, a
think
lot of
it's
people
just
didn't.
I think it's another layer of demonstrating control. These are
Mhm.
not drag race speed events where five guys will finish in 35 seconds. This is
Mhm.
about who's the strongest, who's the best. And
Mhm.
it's like, it's just one more layer demonstrating control. I don't mind it. I get why people don't like it, but I don't
Mhm.
mind it.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. I mean, as you say, it takes strength on that kind of eccentric phase as well. Yeah. It's just not something we were familiar
Mm,
with in strongman. Yeah.
yeah. If you have the control of the implement to put it down where you want it,
Mhm.
I believe definitely had the control to lock it out.
Mhm.
So,
My concern for you for the competition was frame because I've seen it catch
mm,
everybody out, or almost everybody, especially on a first time, because it is different. It's not like other frames, there's different
yeah.
whips, kind of handles, imbalances in that thing. But you picked it up and did what you said, which is kind of not slow and steady, but certainly, you made
Hmm.
sure of it and got over the line, and it was hugely impressive. Is that also what you expected? Were there any surprises in that for you?
You know, personally, no, I didn't think I could do it. I kept saying things like 30% chance, 40% chance, 20% chance. And Alec was like, based on training, you will finish it. And I was like, are you sure? And he's just certain of it. And we were setting grip PRs in the gym. But I'd never ran that weight before. We never even picked that weight before.
Right.
Um, that's one event where our strategy of leaving the biggest weights at the contest and not in the gym was a little bit terrifying because
Mhm.
I'd never even touched it. And we did one training session up a ramp. And it was like, oh, that session was kind of hard.
Mhm.
Um, so we left a lot of things for contest day. So I wasn't sure, but something that was nice. I was doing my warm ups and I look over and Hooper goes over to the actual frame, or I think it's a copy. I don't know. There's another frame back there that's very similar, and he just picks it and holds it for a second, puts it down. And we were still 30 minutes out, but I'm like, they're going to take that frame away and put it out on the floor. So I was like, no, I'm going to pick it now. So I went over and I picked it. And the way I wanted to pick it, it nose dived forward.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm so thankful I did that because I adjusted my hands. And on the real run, I was fairly well balanced.
Mhm.
And about a third of the way up, I was like, oh, I will do this. It wasn't secure enough that I thought, let's take off and go fast, obviously, because I went fairly slow. But it's just like, if I don't jostle this thing at all, I will finish. And that was my biggest, like, physical, mental win of the weekend. I'd never truly believed I could do it until I was about a third of the way up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge moment. As soon as you did that, I knew you were going to be fighting there on the podium, and even though
Hmm.
it was a chance, it was a big moment. Were you clear on the rules in terms of if you had to get all of the front of the frame over the line, one corner of the frame, if it dropped and inadvertently bounced, were you clear on what the rules are? Because I've spoken to four athletes there, and all have said to me like, "Shit, I'm not sure really like what they were looking for."
No, because, you know, the written rules were fairly thorough. Um, but there's the same controversies come up on this event every year, and there's a bit of Q&A and back and forth in the rules meeting, and I think the rules meeting was a bit rushed, and you could tell that a lot of the organizers aren't in Columbus, Ohio, together all the time.
Hmm.
They had somewhat different understandings of what was correct, what was not.
Hmm.
Um, they made some concessions in the rules meeting to like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and it's still, but we left the rules meeting with a little bit of, I think that's what the rule is, but it wasn't. It's not the tightest. If I had to do my critique of, it's not the tightest rules meeting. It's not the most concise. It's not. It. I wish it was everyone in the room, just athletes and genuine coaches, real tight, no one else, and we stay until we have the rules settled.
Right.
Not we have an end time, and that's really important. And I think we left the rules meeting with a few questions that we didn't even have before the rules meeting, not just on the frame, but on other things. And that I think they are open to feedback, and I'll talk to Steve, and
Mhm.
because I think it to avoid controversy like this, I think we need to have a rules meeting where we sit there until we have it figured out and we're
Yeah.
all on the same page.
It
I
wasn't good.
genuinely, I genuinely don't know what the standard was based on, you know, you watch the event. The standard seemed somewhat different for three or four different people. Um,
Yeah.
I just don't know, man. It wasn't settled. Am I, I've seen people like, oh, Hooper didn't finish. You should have won. I was like, no, I don't want to win like that. The right corner of his frame totally crossed the line, and the left side followed shortly after. At worst, he would have had to do a repick, which he totally was strong enough to do. He might have lost 1 point.
I
It
mean,
doesn't change the
if you
contest.
drop it and it bounces forward, what are you supposed to do? It's not your fault. You're supposed to take it back again and then put it forward. That's the thing. It's not on the athletes.
No, and I think me and Hooper, we were sitting next to each other in the rules, and we actually brought this up. They said you can't you can't slide across the line, and he said, or what? Right? Like you can't have a rule that doesn't have a penalty.
Yeah, exactly.
And you
Yeah.
can't take it back, right? So, and that's a good point. Like I've heard that same argument. Like let's say you have a loading event over a bar, and someone uses the bar to load over the bar, and they say no rep, but you can't go back,
Yeah,
right? Like it's not a rule if there's no penalty.
exactly.
So, and he's smart. He's going to find a way, and you know, I like all of the decisions on the floor that got made with the crossing the line. I could go either way on.
Yeah.
But it's like we didn't have a clear
It
understanding when
has
the
to be
rules
one
meeting
way, doesn't
ended.
it? It doesn't matter what that way is,
It,
but one way.
we didn't have a clear understanding of the rules after the meeting. So
Yeah.
I understand why there was 50-50 calls. And,
Yeah.
I'm pleased with where I ended up in my personal performance. So that's what I'm most concerned about. Um, I don't
I,
feel that I was robbed of anything.
no, no, and I still think in that event it didn't affect the rules, the overall situation so much. I definitely think it did in the overhead medley, but not that event. I believe they should do two things. They should put rubber on the bottom of that frame so it
Mm,
can't bounce and can't slide. And I think they should make the distance after the finished black line like another meter long so that you're clearly beyond it because all the guys, there's a tiny gap after the black line,
sure,
the end point. That also
sure.
makes it kind of confusing, you know?
Some something that because I was kind of kicking this around with like Maxime, Sam, and a couple other people were out in Colorado with me this week, and we were kind of kicking around this idea. I'm not opposed to having like a tape across, like finishing a foot
Mm.
race,
Yeah, yeah.
and who cares how it crosses the line? It just
Got to
has to
break
break
that
the
line.
tape.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't hate that idea.
No, very simple
Because
and makes sense.
it eliminates all the controversy of like, was it in your hands? Was it not? Just make the standard. The frame must hit this line, and you're done. I
Mm.
don't think that's that big of a deal. Because the nature of that event this year was unusual, but a lot of the time, the grip is the limiting factor. And all the guys who grip is not a limiting factor, it's a drag race.
Yeah.
And it happens too fast for these very quick judging decisions to happen. So just eliminate those standards and hit the line. Who hits the line the fastest? I'm fine with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And there's a lot of like pretty simple solutions that will probably get rid of a lot of
Yeah.
it. Because it
Yeah.
is a nice event overall, you know, I still like it.
No. And after doing it, I have such a reverence for it. Like it's cool. Like the Arnold has its own history because it's happened for so long. There's a bit of like I told Steve Slater, like there's a bit of like a sense of honor, like that I get to touch these implements. And I don't know if everyone feels that way, but it's just like who else has gotten to?
Yeah.
Like these dudes are my heroes. Like, and I got to do that too. So I just had this huge sense of reverence for the contest. You know, the details are always, you know, a little sloppy, and it makes you. If you just focus on that, it was the Arnold sucked. I was like, no, the Arnold was an awesome experience. The Arnold was one of my, fondest memories I've had in the sport so far. Um, of course, we can make it better, but I think people focus on that stuff way too much.
Yeah, I mean, it's talking points, isn't it? That's the thing I think
Sure.
about stuff. But at the end of the day, like you say, it's the final results. What's your feeling after coming second there? Was it part relief? Was it just kind of overwhelming happiness that you kind of executed the goal? Was it kind of like just motivation, like, okay, I can actually win this thing next year?
Mhm.
Which is your overall kind of feelings now?
Yeah, it's just each contest as we're podiums in now. Um, at the beginning in prep for each contest, it's me and Alec believing we can do it, and at the end, it's most people believing, oh, okay, they were right. And each time it's like, okay, the system we've put together has made me better. I can keep improving, and this was the first one where I'm like, okay, I'm in range of this guy now. I'm still event dependent. I can't take any 8 events and say I'm going to beat Hooper. It's not true. But I got to finish the final event and say I left nothing on the board, and he has to win this. He doesn't get to win this, and
Yeah.
that was a cool feeling. And I think he enjoyed that as well. He thanked me for just a fun contest. We genuinely had fun competing, and he had to go out and do some reps. Do I think he could have done 3 or 4 reps on that stone if he had to? Sure. I by no means forced him to work hard, but he had to go do the event, which was a cool feeling. And I just, I had a sense of relief that done. It was just like, we've done it. We've done everything we could. We left it out there. Um, I got my first win against Thor, which is no small feat. Um, and it's just a cool thing to like even share the stage with those guys. So it was a huge sense of relief when the show got done. I just, I was sent off to the side when Hooper came out. Let's hype up the crowd. Let's have some fun. Either win it or you don't. And I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Are you of the feeling that the way I see it is that you and Thor are the two that are going to cause Hooper problems in this coming year now? Are you seeing that as well with Thor? Because obviously it's just his pressing really that was a big problem. But when I looked at
Mm,
Strongest Man on Earth, he came second by 8 points from Hooper, but he dropped something like 16 points on Hooper on the two overheads there. So that would
mm,
make imply that if he gets his overhead back, which is coming, that he can also be in genuine
mm.
contention along with you against Hooper going forward. Do you see it like that?
Yeah.
Someone else,
So
perhaps?
prior to this show, I might have disagreed with you a little on the pressing point, but the guys love to find a way to let Thor score points. They left the door wide open on the press ladder or on the press gauntlet. Um, I would have never placed that position for Thor, but I would have said Thor will score every point he possibly can. So as long as guys keep making mistakes and leaving an opportunity for him, he's going to take advantage. So yeah, I think especially in something like Strongest Man on Earth, where he has 8 events to make up ground. Yeah, Thor is going to be an absolute problem. Rogue Invitational, he proved it. Yes, Hooper won that one handily, but he was in range. Um, I think we are the two most likely to consistently challenge him. Um, but then there's other guys that take out the word consistently. They could still challenge him greatly, like Singleton and Tom and Trey. Like they haven't shown the same consistency, um, but they totally could. Like any of those guys could come destroy me on any given day if they show correct.
Kind of interesting that you've done so much and so well at like Arnold's and Strongest Man on Earth, but you still haven't done well with Strongest Man. It's kind of often, we see athletes do those things before. We've got the events, we've seen the events, but it's not public yet. So unfortunately, we can't discuss it too
I
much.
know.
Based on the events, how confident are you compared to, for example, going into the Arnold's?
So I've got two out of the 10 or two out of the events that two out of an unnamed amount of events that concern me a little. They're in the weaker category for me. It just depends. Do they fall in the groups or the final, right? I think if I catch a challenging event for me in the groups, I will still make it through. I don't think I'll win my group, but I think I can come through. Um, if both of those events are in the final, I have a hard work day ahead of me. Um, I'm still somewhat event dependent, but like we're across, prelims and finals. We're gonna deadlift a couple times. We're gonna press a couple times. We're gonna do, standard world strongest man stuff, and those aren't bad events for me. Um, I feel fairly confident, but it's as far as saying, oh, I will podium or I can push for the win. That's going to come down to where they put each event, and that's just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because people who don't know, the athletes have been given all the events that there will be, but they haven't been told which one of those are in the groups and which one of those are in the
yeah,
final. And there's a
I
couple.
think I think you can kind of assume there's certain events that let's say there's a max or something. Hard to put that in a group stage, or rare to put that in a group stage.
Yeah. But then,
So
not many events in the finals. And if that's the case, there'll be two max out of five. And we'll see. We'll see. It could be.
yeah, like it's been done before, but it's unusual.
Yeah. Yeah. With five events, if that's not many at all. Yeah. I think we've given away how many events. So I don't think that's a secret anyway. But
No,
it doesn't help anyone anyway. They don't know what the events are. So
no,
uh,
no, and yeah.
do you expect Tom Stoltman to obviously, really, you can say he had an underwhelming performance at Arnold's, but do you still expect him to be the man to beat at Worlds? Or do you think that's a sign that perhaps he won't be?
He tends to be that guy when it comes to worlds. And I think the characterization of Tom is somewhat unfair. He still podiumed at the Arnold last year. He podiumed at Rogue. He wasn't out of the fight at Strongest Man on Earth, despite two zeros. Um, like he does have lapses in his mental game at times, and we've seen it. But it's like when he's on, he's on. Like every single time I predict a show or plan for a show, I'll be like, Tom Stoltman's there. That's a problem. He can beat me. He has all the tools to beat me. Um, and I think as long as he come into each show with that kind of respect, I don't know. I don't know if he's always going to show up, but I think it's a safe bet at World's Strongest Man. Now he's got a new coach this year. Who knows what that means, right? He had a great system, at least, to prepare for World's Strongest Man in the past. Who knows what that looks like this year?
And one last question, Lucas. I'm always interested about psychology of sportsmen. What are you thinking when you go in for a big lift, max lift? Are you angry? Are you calm? Are you focused on technique? What's your psychology behind it?
I think as you go for like an opener, it's more cerebral. There is a bit of I don't put a lot of emphasis into hyping myself up on the openers because the contest and the nerves do that anyways. Um, and a lot of things you get three or four attempts. Each attempt, the technique the cues fall further and further back in your mind if you've done good practice,
Mhm.
and it goes more towards that. Okay, let's elevate the energy. Let's elevate the energy. Um, so by attempt three or attempt four, um, you might have one cue, you might have no cues. It might just be let's use this energy. There's nothing left to learn. It's just let's do this. Um, and yeah, certain lifts feel better as they get heavier and you get more rounds in. I felt that way with the big jerk at the Arnold. Um, and it's funny. There's this statement that me and Alec have kind of I don't know where it came from. I think it's a Marshawn Lynch quote. He's a former NFL running back. He did a kind of a funny interview where he was talking about the mentality he has is running through someone's face. Um, but the quote me and Alec come back to is like run through the wall,
Mhm.
run through the wall, through the wall, through the wall. Or it's like I'll catch myself saying that when there's an event I know is going to hurt, or there's going to be a moment where I'm going to feel like I'm going to hit the wall. So I subconsciously I start saying it's like I'm chalking up through the wall, through the wall, through the wall. It's such a funny piece of psychology that we just picked up at some point. And certain events you just have to be prepared to not meet the wall, go straight through it.
Okay,
And
well,
it's
interesting.
yeah,
It's working. It's working. So,
yeah, it's working. It's like JF Caron and his weird coughing before he goes. Like everyone has their thing. Um,
Mhm.
Rauno nearly pukes before he lifts. So
Everyone,
whatever psychology works for you.
yeah, that's it. Well, look, mate, it's been a absolute pleasure having you on. I'm sure everyone will be glad to hear all this from you. Got to say, my most favorite YouTube channel now is yours. It's the one I'm always tuning into because you've got your training videos. You even did behind the scenes for us at Arnold's. Is that a channel you're planning to keep going now, content wise?
Yeah. So for those of you guys don't know, it's Hatton Strength on YouTube. Yeah, we've been doing it for a little over a year now. I think before the Arnold UK was kind of our first set of videos. So it's kind of full circle. We've had a lot of traction in the first year. I don't intend to ever be a traditional influencer or do all those, eating challenges and all that nonsense. Like, sure, that stuff's fun and some people enjoy it. I just want to stick with strongman content. Um, so I appreciate everyone who's found us already. But if you're seeing this and you've never seen my YouTube, I would really appreciate if you go on over and check out the channel because we put a lot of work into it and it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because you guys have a lot of knowledge of athletes kind of on the fringe of making it into the elite as well, and you do prediction videos. So it's pretty interesting from an athlete's perspective of how they think other athletes are going to do in events and things. That it's really interesting. So yeah, everybody have a look.
Yeah, it's just if I wasn't a competitor in strongman, I am a nerd fan of the sport. Like I'm interested in who's doing what promoters are doing what, like the history of the sport, all that stuff. I'd be interested in if I wasn't doing it. So my channel is just a cool opportunity to kind of mesh the practical experience of getting to do it all now and being a nerd about strongman.
Mhm.
So it's just been fun.
Okay, mate. Well, I've got to say, like for me, you've been a like breath of fresh air coming into the sport. You're someone that's approaching it with a more kind of technical, knowledgeable base, I would say. You've always been a great person. Every time we've spoken, very open. You're very kind of forthcoming with your plans in the sport and perhaps slightly different strategy, like some of which you touched on today, like longevity, not record chasing. Yeah, so I'm just chuffed like you're in the sport and you're already doing so well and just wish you the best going forward. And of course, we'll be in contact and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I really appreciate having me on, man.
Okay, mate. We'll catch you soon. We'll see you at Worlds and we wish you the best there.
All right, brother.